Previously on the Simply Human podcast.
That's a great question. So what I believe we're going to find out is this, that COVID is principally spread by bioaerosols, meaning cloud. It's not person to person. It's not this idea of micro droplets where a person coughs on you or is talking to you and it gets in your face. And
it's episode 238 of the Simply Human podcast with your hosts, Mark and Rick. Two human beings being human. Our goal was to help you understand that humans are designed to eat, sleep, move, and enjoy. You can start living more like a human today. On today's show, it's Jennifer Maynard. Jennifer worked in the biotech and pharmaceutical specialty medicine areas for over 20 years. After putting 2 decades of her passion into changing people's lives through modern medicine, she felt her knowledge and experience would be better served focusing on food as medicine. So, you weren't on the call.
Who's not?
Which we're going to explain in the next show. This crosstalk we need to talk about. So,
the what? I'm sorry. The what?
We're going to talk about.
I don't know. What is that? I'm unaware.
So
I live under a rock.
Yeah. So the last episode that you dear listener either watched or listened to was the Jeff Gusky interview, where we talk about the COVID and we talk about indoor humidity and all that stuff. And so in the intro of that show, you and I talked about us being on primary contacts and all that. And we had to we were taking kids out of school, Well, so am I going to just tell you the story? Is that how that's?
Yeah, just tell the story.
So, the kids, were exposed on a Friday. The person they were exposed to tested positive over the weekend. So we found that out on a Tuesday. So because of how the timing worked, they needed to come out of school on that Tuesday, which was like the first weekend. It was September 1st, I believe.
Okay.
So there were some other kids also exposed in the same way of some friends of ours. And so we were all on the same boat. Two of our kids were primary contacts. The rest of the family is secondary contacts, but we hung out all weekend. So it's like we're kind of all in the same.
We might as well quarantine kind of together, so we're not just.
So they came down here on that Tuesday night and had dinner down here.
What'd you have?
Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday.
So I usually do. We do corn, tortillas, and fish. Pescado.
Oh, I'm sorry. What? Pescado.
You
said it like a white guy learning how to speak Spanish.
Well, you nailed it. You named precisely what's happening. Okay, so they came down because the children of that family were primary contacts. The employer of the husband of that family, the dad, they made him go get tested. He tested negative Wednesday. The wife went and tested on Thursday, positive. So it's like, okay, now
you were all primary contacts.
Whole family is primary contact, and we're resetting our quarantine to Tuesday from the last Friday when they were exposed, right? So it's like, okay, so I call our doctor, like a pediatrician, because me and Hunter, my son, we're going out to the ranch. We were going to go. I was going to take my son out to dove hunt and stuff. I called him and I was like, do we go?
Kill some of God's creatures.
Yes.
Didn't do anything to you. Innocent, but that's fine.
A bird pooped on me last.
So you're going to take it out on all birds. Just kill as many birds as you can.
I'll ruin the day that you pooped on Mark H. Rogers. Okay. So the doctor was like, if y'all aren't showing symptoms, go. It's fine. You'll be fine. If something crazy happens, which it won't, you can come home, whatever. So we go, and when we go out to the farm, the ranch, whatever you want to call it, I never shower. I don't.
This is when you invited me, by the way.
It is.
So I'm glad I didn't go.
Oh my God.
I'm glad my social anxiety told me not to.
Man. So we go out to the farm. We come back on Sunday, and this is the part where it kind of gets crazy. So I come home on Sunday with my son in the clothes that I left in on Friday, right?
Of course.
So I hadn't showered. I hadn't even changed clothes in like
Classic Mark.
3 days.
Didn't brush my teeth. Didn't wipe my bottom.
I wiped my bottom.
I don't believe that for a second.
Moving on. So I get home and I walk in the door. I hadn't even said hi to my daughters yet. And Jen comes over and she's like, go get in the shower. You smell terrible. And I was like,
a nickel.
Yeah. I was like, okay, she's being dramatic. This is like my inner monologue. It's like, I don't smell that bad. She's just like, like that's how you're going to greet me. Like, so, and I go like, it's like, I don't even smell. And then I went, wait,
dun, dun, dun.
Like, that's impossible for me to not stink right now.
Yeah.
So I didn't say anything to Jen or anyone. I just like went into the shower, and I'm in the shower, and I'm like, I got like the soap, and I never, how often do you like? It's like the Seinfeld thing, like the milk. You smelled it, I smelled it. What's it supposed to smell like? Like no one, you never like smell milk. So I'm like smelling the soap, and I'm like, and I got all of her little soaps. She has all the soaps and everything, and I'm like doing all this stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. So I'm like, I don't think I can smell anything, and so I get out of the shower. And I spray cologne like right on my arm, and I'm like, and that's when I was like, oh crap.
And so to verify, you went out in the yard and grabbed a huge pile of dog turds and shoved your face in them.
I thought about doing that with a big cow patty out at the
gross,
but and videoing it. So I get the coffee beans. I smell the coffee beans. Nothing. So Jen is like, get out of here, go get tested. So I get a test. This is a Sunday. I test positive. I come home and I'm in the room here, and Jen goes Monday and tests negative. So if she had tested positive, then we're just going to quarantine all together.
Yeah,
there's no way the kids can isolate from parents for 10 days, So it's like, okay, she tested negative. Pretty awesome. So it's like there's two options really, and for most people there's one option. You got to stay locked away for 10 days, right?
I don't know how you do that with a family.
Yeah, like you
literally just stay in a room and everyone, I'm coming out to. Well, you can't even come out.
Not even that. Like it's like you stay the heck in there. Now I'm thinking through like Jen's got
slide fruit roll-ups underneath the door. That's the only
food
flat enough to
with and on the outside of the door there's all the other food that we've tried to slide under to smash the door, and I'm like
trying to slide you a fish taco and the tortilla goes underneath there but the fish stays on the other side of the door.
So
I'll try the pescado.
Sandwich de pescado. Un sandwich. So
that's how they say it actually, sandwich.
Thank you very much. So it's like I didn't want to do that. The thought of 10 days, like I did one day, from Sunday night when I got home, I watched like a couple of movies, and just laying on the bed with my laptop, and I was like, this sucks. So the kicker was Jen's parents sold their house, and so they needed to like access the house that's out there that has the kitchen and the bathroom farm, and all that. There is a cabin up there that has a couple of bunk beds and like running water, no refrigerator or anything. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go just get do a curbside order at HEB or something and get like instant potatoes, Dinty Moore chunky soup, like that kind of stuff, bottles of water, like all that, and just go out there. So Monday night, that's what I did. I went out there and I stayed out there for 11 days.
Gosh.
Luckily, I feel like I cheated the system. The only symptoms, like I still don't have my smell and taste back all the way.
Good for you.
I still can't like smell my own farts, which I miss. I do miss. But like
no one else does.
But I can smell. I can smell like really, really strong stuff. I just can't smell like dinner.
Like not your farts.
I know that's a weird. But it's
odd.
Like body odors and like things like that. I could smell the waffle fries from Chick-fil-A. Like what? So I don't know. I've done some reading on it. Apparently, it's like 6 to 8 weeks before it'll come back. Like all the way. So it is a very weird. I talked to someone else. One of my friends got it and called me to like ask me all that, and he's like, "Well, I ate some M&Ms yesterday, and like I could taste those." And I was like, "You need to like check like with something really pungent that you know what it smells like, because it was weird. Like I would eat something, and if I didn't know my smell was gone or taste was gone, it's like the familiarity of how it feels in your mouth."
Yeah.
That's what she said. is enough to like kick that like dopamine hit or whatever it is in your brain. Like, it's weird. It's hard to explain. Like, so the feeling of food like matters, which you wouldn't really think it does. So, I had limited internet access, and so I went hunting out there, and I tried to become one with the cows. And I was it Jane Goodall?
You live amongst them, and you ate grass, and
I did. So there's a video I took. I probably have like 20 minutes worth of videos on my phone that I still need to edit into a little movie. But in one of the videos, I set the phone up, and I get on my hands and knees, and all the cows are like sleeping under this tree, and I'm like slowly walking towards them on all fours, and like at one point, like I reach down, and, like take some grass in my mouth, and I'm like making moo noises, and then it's like I get like up to a certain point, and they all just freak out and run. I did ride my mountain bike naked.
Really?
I did.
There's not anybody on this planet who had more fun having COVID than you. I pretended I was a cow. I rode my bike naked. I took the seat off too.
I changed the seat
Nope.
with a screwdriver.
Well, I will say this. I have a friend of mine, and I told her, hey, it was like, a buddy of mine's got COVID, and she was like, oh man, that's terrible. Like, you're going to die. It's like, oh, no, it's worth it for the jokes. We've been making jokes nonstop for like the last 3 or 4 days about how, when it was funny, change his will. So
that Sunday when I was like waiting, yeah, man, I'd forgotten about this. So I'm like, hey, everyone, like in this group thread we're always talking about, I'm like, I'm at the doctor, like I can't smell anything. And I'm here getting tested. And then I got the results, and I didn't say I tested positive. I just put 3 of the like emoji plus signs, like which was I'm positive. I tested positive.
Which only one other person in the group correctly deciphered, and like an hour later
it was like 2 days later that y'all were like, y'all didn't really. I was like, no, guys, I
didn't know the test results came back in like 4 minutes. I thought you had to wait like a day or two to get them. And so like a day or two later, I'm like, did you get your result back? And Mark is like, I can't believe you don't care about me. How do you not know? And we're like, what are you talking about? We had to scroll back, and I was like, oh yeah, okay. I guess the plus sign emoji. I guess that's what we're all going to find out when Mark gets AIDS too. He's just going to put a bunch of plus signs in the group chat. And we're like, hepatitis C this time. We got AIDS. What do we got here? So
you're checking off the list of things that I've already talked about. Well, it's only like left.
I will say this. I feel like I am in me personally, like a pretty realistic space about COVID. I am trying not to get it. I haven't gone to a restaurant in forever. If I go to the grocery store, I try to go in quickly and, distance and wear a mask, but we're not going any places. But it's, I'm still working in the office, so I'm still around people. So I'm trying to be as careful as I can. If I get it, I feel like at some point it's a foregone conclusion. If they don't come up with like a good, widely
the next few months
vaccine, we're all probably going to get it at some point, but I'm hoping that if I get it, it's like you had it, where it's minimal intrusion. I can quarantine here by myself. That part's no big deal.
Right.
I'll just have somebody, Uber Eats or whatever all the time. But
the fruit roll-ups, quick.
I wonder if you could Uber Eats some fruit roll-ups.
Surely.
Just slide them through the doors.
One by one.
And I'm just sitting at the base where the door meets the floor, like eating them as they're.
of all the flat foods that could
that's
be
the one. The fruit roll-up. It's not tortillas that
you're like, all they had was a fruit by the foot, sir. This is going to take a long time.
It's going to take forever. Well, I'm glad that you don't have it anymore. I'm glad that you didn't get terribly sick. I'm hoping that that's to me the worst part about it is we don't know a lot about this, and so we don't know long-term implications. I'm hoping that your lack of your lack of bad symptoms means that you're not going to have any,
Right.
implications down the line.
Right.
But I guess time to update that will. Make sure I get in there.
Oh, you're in there.
You're going to leave me all your books. I'm going to be like, all right, what do I got here? Books? Book version!
You got this one. This is an upcoming guest we're gonna have on. She sent me her book.
Sweet.
So that'll be cool. We're gonna talk about that. That's an important.
Okay. Awesome.
People listening to the audio version are like, what are they talking about? Okay. Next week we're gonna talk
then
about,
they should watch the video version, and maybe we can start making some money.
next week we're gonna, in the intro we're gonna talk about why you haven't been on the last like 3 interviews. And then we should be back on track. So
Yes.
we booked a show in like January a couple weeks ago. So
We're all still alive. Then yeah.
we're going to be booked out. So there's something else I was going to say about. Anyway, let's get to Jennifer. She was awesome. I had a good time talking to her by myself.
I had a really good reason, Mark.
I know.
Everyone knows that.
Yeah. Okay, so here's Jennifer. We talked to her about her birthday.
Okay.
Connecting to nature, a backward focus, the pharmaceutical company, food as medicine, soil depletion, community-supported agriculture, sustainable farming, good bugs, and growing things. Here's Jennifer. But just to peel the curtain back a little bit, Rick is not on the call with me tonight. It's not like we get paid for this, so I can't say that he's missing work, technically. Because the Dallas Stars are in the Stanley Cup Finals. Are you a hockey fan, being from Alaska, New Jersey? That's north. Is that that's hockey, right?
I mean, I like playing sports, but I don't have the time, unfortunately, anymore to watch much sport. I did watch the Tour de France. I was a runner and a triathlete, so
Okay.
I'm a little bit biased to those. I played baseball, but only
let's
when I
talk
was
about triathletes in just a second, and triathlons in just a second. Not specific triathletes. So Rick is from Dallas, like I am, and he's a huge Dallas Stars fan. They're in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Nice.
Game 2 is happening now. They're in the second period, and I'm fine with him, because if it was the Cowboys in the Super Bowl or something, like, I would get it. So we're gonna have to figure out another time to record the ins and outs after.
No problem.
I'll do the interview by myself, and whatever. I understand. So what distances did you do? Because people, when you say triathlons, people will be like, oh yeah, and they don't understand. Like, no. There's like all the different levels and types of distance.
Yeah,
so.
I just did sprints and Olympic. My husband's an Ironman guy, so he does the long stuff. I just do short. And yeah, I haven't done one in a while since New Jersey. The season's pretty short, and especially since we started the farm and been a little too busy to train. But anyway,
right.
It's another story.
Yeah, I did for like a 7-year period. I did between I did anywhere from sprints to I did 1 Ironman and like 5 or 6 half Ironmans.
Wow.
I'm glad, like, the Ironman was a great experience. I love doing it. I will never do another one. When I did the Ironman, my plan was to do one like every other year. Like, that was my.
Yeah.
But then, like, that was, my daughters were like very young. And now it's just like, I just don't have 7 hours to go ride a bike on Saturday morning, and then like working out all hours of every day. Like, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I got my Ironman in. I can say that I did.
Got it out of your system.
We're good. So this is kind of this is up towards Alaska. This is it's like
some time over there.
That's
I mean,
like,
I've bounced around a lot. I started in Alaska and then California, all the way from Southern California to Northern, then Germany, then New Jersey, then Switzerland, then back to New Jersey. So bounced around a bit.
Very cool. Okay, so we've done like kind of the longer intro, but I want to hear from you. And we normally do like a birthday game. We guess your birthday. And since Rick isn't on, what is your birthday? You just
January 3rd.
January 3rd. One of my best friends growing up is a January 3rd. See, I'm going to put that in the show notes. January 3rd. We like to know birthdays. Rick has actually guessed a birthday correct one time of all the guests we've done. So that's kind of a fun game we play. So in your own words, like, give us like the Cliff's Notes version of kind of like your background, your story, and how you ended up doing like what it is you're doing now.
Okay.
And we are recording, and let's do this.
Okay. So I started my childhood and my life in growing up in a homestead, Alaska. So we kind of lived on the land, with the land, very connected to nature, and
Awesome.
that's always stayed with me my whole life. I then, when I was in kind of later middle school, we moved to California, very close to a lot of family. And my uncle actually contracted HIV and battled through HIV and then AIDS in the 80s, when there wasn't really
Gosh, that
much of a
was like,
standard of
yeah, it
care.
was like kind of like COVID now. Like everyone's like, what should we do?
Yeah,
Like,
everyone was
I don't
scared of it.
know. Yeah.
Doctors wouldn't treat them. There was no real standard of care.
Right.
Insurance companies wouldn't cover a lot. So for me, that was a really life-changing event, because I was there for him a lot, and I watched him suffer a lot. So I went into the healthcare industry. Biotech was actually my major, biochemistry, and I focused really heavily on specialty medicines for over 20 years of my life. And I loved
So
it. I
you
loved a
started
lot of,
when you were like 9?
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't understand math. I'm not good at math.
yeah. But I spent pretty much my whole career doing that. But I've always grown my own food. But for specialty medicines, that was my passion, and I really felt we needed to make more progress with acute diseases like that. But as I moved up into kind of executive levels doing that, I got kind of a broader picture, and I felt like, okay, we have made really good progress. I'm not an anti-modern medicine person. I think it has its place, but I feel like we have it really backwards. We spend like 80% of the focus on pills and injections and interventions that are using, treatments that I believe are better suited for acute illnesses and things that we don't have other options for. And we spend less than 20% on food as medicine and lifestyle medicine. And that's where I just felt like we weren't doing enough to try to, for one, prevent chronic illness, but two, also to provide more interventions with chronic illness, because we're losing that battle. So where I feel like HIV/AIDS, there's been incredible progress, certain forms of cancer where there wasn't much alternative options before. But with chronic illness, no one can debate we're losing that battle. People are just getting more and more ill. We're putting them on more and more medication, and we're not making them better. So the one thing I personally experienced, so I've almost always grown my own food. It's just been a passion of mine. And I live a very healthy lifestyle, and I felt like, why shouldn't other people have access to this? Why shouldn't other people have more access to education on how you can first prevent that illness, but also interventions? And I personally knew people affected by type 2 diabetes, and really felt like I helped them get past a really spiraling downward effect on their health. And so that's where I decided actually to leave that industry and start my own regenerative farm, because I believe everything starts actually with the soil, not even just with the food, but the origin of the food, and really kind of start from the ground up. And then I launched Nutrition for Longevity. After I launched the farm, I launched Nutrition for Longevity, which is a company that focuses on, curating the fruits and vegetables from the farm and turning them into something useful that follows kind of a very precise diet. And that's what I do now. So I've really completely flipped from, being in a science field. This is still a science field, but in a different way. And really focusing on chronic illness and doing that with food as medicine.
Yeah, there's so many things to get to just with what you just said. So like I read some in a book or something, one time that like back in like the 40s, 50s, 60s, you spend 8-9% of your income on like healthcare and like 40-50% on food. And now it's the opposite. Now we're spending less than 10% of our income on food and like 50, 60, 70% of our income on medicine. It's like we don't understand. It's like what I always tell people is like, okay, you can buy cheap food, but you're gonna like, oh well, I can't afford to eat healthy. Well, okay, you can't afford it now. You're gonna pay for it. So,
one way. Absolutely. And I don't think a lot of people know that. So actually the US, we spend 6% per capita on food.
Gosh.
In the US, the least of any country in the world.
Unbelievable.
We spend the most on healthcare. I mean, something's backwards there, right? And we're only the 34th healthiest development country. So we have it wrong. And that's why I said I feel like we got to flip it from 80% spent on pharmaceuticals and, you know, treating illnesses through pills and injections, whereas we need to flip that. 80% of our chronic illnesses, we've already proven this, could be addressed with lifestyle changes, one of those obviously being food and nutrition. So there's so much that we need to be doing different. And if you go back to the 50s, there's a lot of things that were different that, you know, I'm not saying people necessarily had the same levels of longevity. There were other acute illnesses that caused a lot of problems, but we had healthy soil, or much more healthy soil. Our soil has been completely degenerated over the last 50 plus years. We have pretty much decimated our soil microbiome through the use of different chemicals. And so we've lost this biodiversity, and we've lost this connection with food. And it's all kind of accumulating into chronic illness. And it's just something that I feel like we need to take a step back and really evaluate our food system and our healthcare system and go, okay, we have these really backwards.
So I want to get to the food stuff and like the farm stuff, but before that, like from a pharmaceutical standpoint, there's a book that I always talk about on the show. Rick would make fun of me because I brag about how many times I've read it and all that stuff. Like it's Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb, and there's there's a chapter about what he's really talking about is that like science and like research and people in a lab getting paid to find medicine like that. Typically, like if you look at over history, that's not where medical breakthroughs have come from. They've come from like accidents. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, like we tried this and that actually was a side effect. So, that's interesting. And so it's like it's people just tinkering and like doing stuff instead of just like this science like telling you what to do. And so the pharmaceutical company, it's like, or the industry, okay, take this one thing, we know the side effects. Okay, that's fine. We know the side effects for the one thing, but when you add that one thing into a system that's ingesting maybe 6, 7, 8, 15, we haven't studied how all 15 of those things are going to react to each other. So it's like, what do we do about that? What's the answer there? You know, like the system that's so ingrained and so conventional wisdom, like, oh, I'm sick, I'm going to take an antibiotic. That's if you say you're not going to take the antibiotic, you're crazy. You know? Like
yeah. And we don't. It's just like with farming, we've kind of gone away from looking at things from a system approach, and we look at things in just this linear, this one thing. So it's just a cucumber plant, and I can just feed it synthetic chemicals, and I can keep that alive. But we don't look at the entire system, just like the human body. Right. It's like, you know, when we figured out leptin was being blocked, which was causing people to not turn off their, you know, feeling hungry and wanting to eat more. So they connected that to obesity. The first thing wasn't let's figure out how this all fits together. It was how can we create a pill?
Right, to fix the problem. Right. No.
And so it's a cycle. If you really look at how our body uses food, there's other things that become this cyclical loop, this vicious cycle that our modern food system drives, and you can easily change that with just changing your diet. But instead we want a pill. And that was a pretty catastrophic thing because they did come out with pills and we had a lot of people suffer because of it. Right. So I think that's definitely something that is heavily impacting our health as a country. It's also not sustainable. If you just look at the expense of spending almost 20% per capita on our pharmaceuticals and our healthcare system, it's not sustainable. As you look at this wave of baby boomers that are heading into this huge peak in the U.S., it's not sustainable. We have to change it. We will bankrupt our country. So not only will more people be ill, but we won't be able to afford it. So I try to, you know, tell people you can look at it at the holistic way and that people should live a better life. But if you look at it also pure financially, we just can't sustain this.
Yeah. What's the definition of better at that point?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. It's like if you can't afford or you're totally miserable, like what's the, you know, that's what everything that I do. This is like when I'm coaching people or talking to new, you know, I guess clients or whatever. It's like I'm not doing something to look a certain way or to necessarily do anything like. And I had this conversation with a friend today who was talking about investing in some home gym equipment, and I was like, you can't look at that as like $600 that you're just throwing down the toilet. You are investing in and he's like my age. I'm in, I was gonna say mid 30s. I'm 39. I'm not mid 30s anymore. That is gone. But it's like you were investing in at that point being a good granddad. Like I
Yeah.
want to be strong enough that I can like get down on the ground and play around and get up off the ground and sit crisscross on the ground. Like that's what you're investing in. Like that's the longevity that we're after. And it's like, oh, you only live once. I'm gonna have donuts every meal. Like that's great in the moment, but
Yeah.
that's not making you a better grandpa.
Yeah.
Like,
It's really it's challenging because we have so many I would say food temptations in our you know modern food, and those are things that do make it challenging for people to make that decision. But that's where our diet, we focus on the longevity and the research behind the people that live the longest, healthiest lives. And what's more important than longevity is the health span, because they live healthy longer, and they're vibrant, and they have great cognitive ability. I mean, if you look at the increase in our cognitive issues in the US, like it's frightening. Dementia now is showing up instead of in late 70s and 80s, it's showing up in 50s. And that's certainly nothing I want to go through in my 50s. I mean, I'm not that far from there. So
you got like 31 years to 50.
Yeah, right.
With the age.
Yeah, so definitely something that I think is important is I think people undervalue the importance of what we're putting in our bodies. Like we don't even think twice about eating at a fast food joint or a lot of the processed foods that, I mean, I was looking at a study, and they were saying over 90% of food choices in the grocery store are just bad choices. Like it's not even that you have 50-50, like it's 90% are bad. And I have some rules, like I won't go to the grocery store if I'm hungry, because I know like this other person's going to throw a bunch of like cookies in my cart.
I haven't had the Lucky Charms in a while. That's that's a nostalgia thing. I need those Charms. Yeah.
But it's, I mean, when I've been around a lot of, especially now that I'm in the food industry more, around, what a lot of companies do. They have food engineers that literally engineer this food to be beyond your control. So they take it past what they call the bliss point, where you literally can't turn it down, and you can't just eat one. That's the food industry is starting to do, is they're getting feedback. There's too much sugar. There's too much this, too much processed. So their response is, well, everything's fine in moderation, right?
Right.
But they know they engineer that food to be impossible to resist. So people can't just eat one. At least most people can't.
Have you read The Dorito Effect?
No.
It's a whole book about, and it's actually, I guess, a lot of those plants, from what I understand from reading that book, is that a lot of the plants that engineer the smells and the tastes are in like up in the New Jersey area.
It doesn't surprise me.
There's like an industrial row of these factories that if you drive by, it's like, oh, that smells great over there. That's mama's home cooking, and it's just chemicals. It's like you take this Dorito and you put this. They have chicken and biscuits and gravy chips now. It's like it's not food, people.
No.
Come on, I mean, every now and then, like at the 4th of July barbecue, like have some biscuits and gravy chips, but like for them, don't have those like for breakfast every day.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so let's talk about the farming stuff.
Okay.
So my wife and I and some other families that are in this town, we live about 3 hours west of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so it's a mid-sized community, about 120,000 people. But we are lucky enough to have a CSA, a community supported agriculture. Nice. So you pay the annual fee, and we actually Monday, so today is the day that we get our huge bag of just stuff, and what we love about it is like, hey, what is heck of this? It's like you're having to Google like how to cook this thing. Yeah, and so, but we just love that, and like it's you pay a lot up front, but you're not having to buy vegetables at the store. Like it's just, and that like we know the farmer. He's a friend of mine. Like I know that he's not doing anything crazy with the soil. He's like it's all organic, homegrown. And there's just, we've got 3 kids, and there's just something about getting that stuff in your system that is like, I hate that we say like, it's like medicine. Like, how did we flip it? Like,
Yeah, I know.
it should be the other way. Like medicine should be like, this medicine is like organic vegetables, not the
Yeah, yeah.
vegetables are like medicine, and so like, is that kind of what you're doing? Like what, tell me a little bit more about like kind of the farm and all that.
So we do a few things. So at the farm, it's a regenerative farm. We use all organic regenerative farming practices. So basically what that means is, the average farm in the US has less than 1% soil organic matter. It used to have 11 back in the 50s, like you talked about. And so it's pretty depleted across the board. Most of our soil has very little soil microbiome, healthy soil microbiome. It's basically turning into dirt, and there's a big difference between dirt and soil. So our farm heavily focuses on building up the soil organic matter, which is like a sponge. So it's a sponge to retain water. We can retain up to 170,000 gallons of water per acre per 1% that we increase. So all these issues with drought and not being able to water with fresh water, agriculture and a lot of our agriculture hubs in the US, if we solved the soil organic matter issue, we would solve a lot of that problem. It also helps with soil erosion. So regenerative farms have about 700 times less soil erosion. So we're not sending our soil into rivers and then, creating these dead zones in the ocean eventually. And then, you get that biodiversity. Plants cope with stress through their soil microbiome, just like our humans do with our gut microbiome. So when you cut off their soil microbiome, they can't draw on those microbes to actually help them cope with stress. So when you add GMO crops and monocrops and chemicals, we have crops that would never survive if we didn't do all these different things. Right. So with regenerative farming, you start to build that soil back up. You start to build the soil microbiome, which is the immune system of a plant. And then you start to actually have this really healthy, nutrient-rich food. They say that food has lost a huge percentage of nutrients over the last 50 years. And that's a lot of it, is we don't have the matrix that's holding it all together, that's building this healthy soil microbiome that can make nutrients available. It's just like our gut microbiome. We can't digest certain food on our own. Our gut microbiome does a lot of that. Right. And that's what the soil microbiome does for plants, is a lot of the nutrients are in the soil, but they're not bioavailable for a plant to take them up into their system. So the soil microbiome does that for the plant. So when you have a healthy soil microbiome, you don't have to add all these chemical fertilizers and additives and different things, because eventually it kind of, you have this ecosystem that's actually, again, looking at it as a system that hits this equilibrium, and it doesn't need all these additional things. Right. And then on top of that, you have the side effect of carbon sequestration. So, we've lost about 2/3 of our carbon store in our soil because of all of this. And just over time, you slowly have that drift. And it's probably one of the biggest opportunities for us to reverse climate change is by regenerating the soil. And again, it's like a sponge, so it's also an opportunity to suck that carbon back into the soil. So you have all these incredible benefits of it, in addition to growing healthy food to feed the human population. And, we believe, the reason why we say food is medicine is people just want a quick fix. And what we're trying to say is, if you start with the healthy produce, only 1 in 10 people in the US eats enough fruits and vegetables per day. That's probably the biggest starting point for most people, is just try to get more of that fiber in your system, feed your gut microbiome, bring in some of that biodiversity, and it can do a lot to change your life. So that's our starting point, is how do we get healthy soil? How do we do all the different farming practices, like no tillage, adding lots of compost? We have vermicompost, Johnson Sioux bioreactor compost, windrow compost. We actually use
animals. You have like pigs and cows, and you have to do the rotation things like that.
We have, we have just goats and chickens. So we don't have large livestock. We have goats and chickens that you can use a lot of their waste in their. Right. At least the goats are hooved animals, so they actually break up the soil in a healthy way without destructing it, and then they rebuild it. So it accelerates that decomposition a little bit, and breakdown and creation of the biodiversity. So we have all those things that we focus on, and then we have high biodiversity. So the average farm in the US has no more than 2 crops. We have hundreds. So, and we build up pollinator habitats, which is a really important thing to support our beneficial insects. In the US, we've lost 80% of our total insect biomass, which if you look at, just the food, our cycle of food, that's pretty catastrophic. It's actually pretty frightening, and most people don't even know that. So we do a lot on our farm to try to build that up, and that helps us use organic practices because we don't need as many sprays. Our own beneficial insects actually, take out a lot of the invasive species that we don't want. So like, as an example, our farm every year, we have less and less pests. So like tomatoes, you get these big, huge tomato hornworms, as they're called, and they're massive. They can eat like in a day almost a whole tomato plant. And what we notice on our farm is we have fewer and fewer every year. And then there's parasitic wasps that naturally showed up on our farm. And before they even got big enough, the parasitic wasps had already taken them out. So like I said, your system, starting with your soil and then also above ground, you start to hit this equilibrium where it starts to kind of take care of itself.
Isn't that like,
and as an yeah.
Well, I was going to say, like, you look, rewind, like, I don't know, 500 years or something, and just like go out into the wilderness, and like nature had it.
Yeah.
They figured it out. Like there's this thriving, there's hooved animals going in here, and there's compost and all this stuff. And it was like all the diversity and everything. And then like humans come through, just like with what you do with your body. Like your body has like systems to fix things. And it's like, as soon as you cut your finger, like our what we've been trying to do is like, I'm going to put a Band-Aid on that. Well, like your body has a pretty good little system of healing that all by itself. You don't need to intervene so much. And we think, go back to the land, it's like, oh, we're going to intervene, we know more, we're going to do, like, we're going to get the most out of this. And then look what it's doing to your body and to the land. Like, it's like, that's what Simply Human is. Like, that's like going back to how it was, like, things were designed to do. And so like your farm is like it's like Simply Farm.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the human version of just the land. Like, going back to how was this land like developing all this and producing all this food in its natural state?
Yeah,
all
absolutely.
This stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what we say, like, we kind of say the good stuff and nothing else, because I feel like that's hard now. It shouldn't be hard to get, just the healthy plants. And I mean, I love that you bring up the CSA. So we do CSAs and we do those locally and we ship that. And then we do really tailored meal kits. And so those are obviously more prepped than just the vegetables, because some people know what to do with kohlrabi and all these different exotic vegetables. And some people are like, I don't know, it's not iceberg lettuce, I don't know what to do with it.
Right. It's weird. I'm not going to eat this. Yeah.
yeah. It's purple. Why is this purple? So we take that, a step further, and we have chefs and dietitians, and they really tailor that into what's consistent with the longevity diet, which is where, again, all the regions of the world where people live the longest, healthiest lives, they actually have the same macros in common. So we use those macros. We use a lot of the nutrient-rich foods that they eat common in those regions, like a lot of legumes as their protein source. They eat a very plant-forward diet, so that's what we do. And then for us, it's very precise. It's an exact calorie range. And then we do medically tailored meals. And that's where the food as medicine piece really comes into play, is we're launching lines of, for example, we have a line right now for type 2 diabetes, and it really is using all of the modern science to help people with type 2 diabetes really start to see an improvement in their lifestyle without adding more medication on top. And so those are some of the things we're really excited about, that we're moving into pretty quickly. So it started as a farm, and then we launched the meal kit company, and the two are tied together. So we can have ultra fresh, ultra healthy food really fast. So it gets to someone's door in 48 hours of us harvesting most of our crops.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like lightning speed.
Yeah. Well, okay. So we're coming up on time, but I want to give you some time. So talk about the book, talk about the website, like promote yourself. Like, how can people find you and learn more?
All right. Yeah. So you can find us at nutritionforlongevity.com, and you can see we have vegan, fully plant-based meals. We have pescatarian, so those are the most common in the longevity regions. And the longevity diet book, written by Dr. Walter Longo, he researched these regions for 30 years and came up with the longevity diet that has the exact macros. And then we also do a lot of education on what that means also from a lifestyle, as far as active lifestyle and exercise and community and the things that build up longevity, because there's multiple pillars that really help people live these long lives. And it's in areas where people live past 100 and live a very good life. Like I said, it's not just longevity, it's health span, which is what we focus on. And we're just trying to, again, bring that education. We're trying to shift the needle. Like you said, we have cheap food in the US, but it's actually making us very ill. Right. And we create these cycles in our system of, insulin buildup, leptin blockage, and it's creating massive problems with weight and obesity and diabetes and heart disease. And so these are the things we're trying to really combat. And really, like you said, it's taking things back to a simplistic way. I mean, there is a lot of science behind it, but if you look at these regions, a lot of them were just somewhat poor regions. They had their own local farms. They didn't eat a lot of meat because they couldn't afford it. Because if you look at the actual cost of, commercial food, there's other effects like the environment and the overall cost. It's heavily subsidized in the US. So we don't see a lot of that cost. It's kind of artificially taken down. Whereas these other regions, it was what it was, so they avoided a lot of those foods. So those are just some of the things we're trying to bring into play, because we now know those are, that's what's helping drive these people's health, and almost completely void of chronic illness. And I think that's really key. Like I said, there's a financial component to it, there's the health component, and that's just what we're trying to really focus on and bring to people.
Awesome. So I'll put that in the show notes, the nutritionforlongevity.com. And now I will ask you the question that we ask all of our guests. And this doesn't have to have anything to do with anything we just talked about. What is something that you enjoy about life, or something you do to make life more enjoyable? Like a hobby, or just something that just fires you up?
So, I mean, it's probably going to sound cliche, but I have always loved growing things. I don't believe there's anything more rewarding than planting a seed in the ground and watering it and nurturing it and seeing it grow into this incredible plant that then feeds your body. And I really encourage people, even if they just grow a little herb on their windowsill, connecting with plants, I think, is one of the most therapeutic things out there. Smelling your food, tasting what real food tastes like. I don't think there's anything better than that in the world. So that's what my passion is. That's what makes me happy. I love getting my hands dirty, whether I'm out at the farm, or I even have my own garden, even though I also have a farm, just because I love to be around my plants. It's my Zen place. I mean, we do yoga out on the farm and stuff like that, but I don't need to do yoga. I can literally just pick weeds. And
I need to go check with my tomatoes over here. Y'all do your yoga. I'm going to be over here.
Yeah.
Taking off the little V thing and the thing. What is that called? The tomato plant has the thing like this, and then there's one that grows up.
The sucker, yeah.
Sucker out, yeah, not the succulent. That's something else. I tell you, there was something else I was going to say when you were talking about growing things, garden, tasting food. Oh, I was going to say, like, we have like a garden. I pointed, it's out there. It's like a little 12x6 raised bed that's got basil, and we've tried different things over the years. Right now, it's kind of overgrown with basil. It just has taken over the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Like, we just have all this, but it's eating basil raw, But like when you grow tomatoes out there, or the tomatoes from the CSA that we get, like I'm sorry, they taste different. They're better. They don't taste like wax. I don't know like what it is, but like there's just I don't know.
Our food system is designed for mass scale and supply chain. I have an operations background, so I mean it makes sense mechanically, right. But we pick tomatoes when they're green. My mom and I do a lot of canning, even still now. And so she had a farm in California, and some of the local farmers would be like, you come pick the ripe tomatoes and make sauce out of them. So we're out there, and I was like, these are beautiful tomatoes. What's wrong with them? And they're like, well, we've been done with the harvest for over a month now. But they pick the greenest tomatoes so they can transport them and they're firm. And then we also, seek traits that make them firm and easy to ship. And then we gas them locally. Right. And so that's why they don't have a lot of flavor. And we do that with a lot of our fruits and vegetables. So they're not really picked at their prime. And then, everything's about the supply chain and being able to feed, mass populations with monocrops.
And granted, that tomato that's gassed and all that is better than eating like like a Snickers for dinner.
Oh, for sure.
But
sure.
come
No.
but if you can, I mean, it's like, I know like a lot of people don't have the time, resources, all that, but good grief,
Yeah.
you can give it a shot. Because
Yeah.
not only is it fun, and like my daughters, and like they love going out there and like getting their hands dirty, doing stuff like that. They love it, and there's something about like connecting, like you said, to the dirt and getting your hands dirty. And there's also, you get exposure to bacteria. There's all sorts of good stuff that goes with that.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
anyway, that's good. That's a good answer. I can't believe 30 minutes is up.
I know.
You've been great. I will email, I guess, Jimmy the link.
Okay.
I'll probably do the audio first before I get to the video, because it's now that we started doing video, it's like two different things. And so
Okay.
Rick is always on me about how long it takes. And I'm just like, you're not producing them, I'm doing it. It takes me a long time. So anyway, so I really appreciate this. This has been great. And I'll let you know when it goes live. And this is, good luck with everything. And hopefully we'll have you back on at some point in the future.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. You have a good evening.
Dude.
Bye.
You're listening to the Simply Human podcast.
All right, that was Jennifer Maynard. She was awesome. We have the next couple of interviews already recorded. We have Jeff Chilton on, a mushroom guy. He's pretty great. We had a really good time. Realmushrooms.com is his deal. I'm asking everyone their birthday and putting it down. So Jeff Chilton is the next show. And then tonight, we talked to Kirsten Beverly Waters, who is really good. She is
really cool. Really cool lady.
Fitness and yoga and mental health and all sorts of great ancient wisdom stuff. It was really cool interview. So we'll get to her. It'll be a few weeks. So that is one thing that I did. Speaking of when I was isolating, I video produced and audio produced 3 shows and got all caught up. And it took me like 4 hours one of the days I was up there to do all 6 of the shows. So I need to just. And it's like all 3 got released like in a 2-day span. So
everyone watch the shows on YouTube. I think that's the easiest way for us to make money if we can start getting people to do that. So make it all worth Mark's time, and that would be awesome if we made like a court, like we get our first check from Google and it's like for 27 cents.
I do enjoy it though. I do like having it on there forever. Like
I do too. I like seeing the faces. I like the whole 9 yards.
So you remember very quickly episode 60, Santa Claus talk, which is like my favorite all time.
Yes.
So we talk in that intro about the kid that goes, "You're Halen's dad," and it's the son of the guy Chris Churchill, the guy that we knew. Mm-hmm. Well, the kid that was like, "You're Halen's dad," back in kindergarten is like Halen's like boyfriend now. And they're like in 6th grade. So this is like
high five, buddy. Hell yeah.
Like 6 years later. And that kid, it's like, anyway. And then I also, my daughters listen to the Urban Prank Call. It's like the first time they understand why it's funny. And they were dying. And
I was actually thinking about that last night, and how great that was just the simplicity of like me and you spent like 3 weeks trying to come up with a good prank. And finally just born out of like, we'll just call him and ask for Steve.
The best.
That'll piss him off real bad if like we do that for like 2 weeks.
Charlie something with Charlie Brown Realtors, and then my name this is Steve, and you go, I'm sorry, Steve. And then at the end of the call, you're like, okay, well, sorry to bother you, Steve. And you call him Steve again.
I gotta listen to that again.
I think it's episode 103. I
gotta go listen to that again. That was fun. That was really, really fun screwing with
the
your
link.
dad.
I mean, it's like the title of the show is the whatever interview and the urban prank call. So
what was the one we tried to do with your brother?
That's on there too. That you tried to say like you were like wanting to do an art form and you wanted to do like a picture of a vagina or something. Remember that?
I couldn't remember what I was trying. I was trying to commission him to do a painting of a vagina, and because your brother Jeff the brother is not crazy and he's so easygoing that he was basically snipped it out in like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
If it would have been Brad, he would have been so blinded by rage that he would have not realized it's a prank. Does Brad listen to the show?
No.
We gotta figure out something to do with Brad.
It would be funny.
Yeah.
Ruminate on that. That was episode 238. This has been great. That is going to do it for this edition of the Simply Human Podcast.
And remember,
all I had was a fruit by the foot, sir. This is going to take a long time.
It's going to take forever.
So until next time, enjoy yourself. Pause that in the